All right, welcome to another episode of the Ari Lewis Show here on IsraelSportsAndNewsRadio.com, and also this will be on YouTube channel, The Nation of Israel, Israel Hashem. We'll see what happens. Hopefully YouTube will allow this. Our guest this evening is known as Zionist Lauren. Also, you can find her on Facebook, Lauren Isaacs, and she's also the National Director of Hayrut Canada. Lauren, it's a pleasure to have you on the program tonight.
Thank you so much for having me.
So we've seen a lot of your videos. You have a lot of great stuff on YouTube. You should check it out. One of these things I saw, I thought it instantly, when I saw this video, was there was this Jay Leno show, a segment called Jaywalking, where he'd interview a lot of people and people would say really stupid things. And he would claim that he didn't interview that many people, that it was a few people and he just took the best of that kind of stuff. The videos where people are saying things like Israel belonged to the Palestinians up until 1980, or 2 million Jews died in the Holocaust, things like that, those videos. Did you interview a lot of people and only took 3 because you're like an evil Zionist to try to make people look dumb? Or was it you only interviewed a few people and that's what we saw?
You know what? We didn't interview that many because not many people will speak to us the minute you say that you're speaking about Israel or Zionism. So people often don't want to talk to you, right? They don't want to associate with evil Zionists. So we put up the videos of people who spoke to us. And mostly, you don't need to edit anything out. You don't need to kind of skew the narrative because there's so much ignorance out there and there's so much hate. And everyone has their own unique, stupid answer when it comes to the Arab-Israeli situation. So no, we didn't cut a lot. Actually, we had too much material oftentimes, and we said, oh my God, we got to cut it down to an 8-minute or a 10-minute video. We can't show an hour, so we had to pick and choose the best, but there was so much material.
So one of these things that actually a lot of the answers really disgust me. I don't want to say it was just a couple, but I think the one that really hit me hard was the guy gave the answer, what Israel did is wrong, burning a little baby is wrong. And he said it with such gusto like it happened. And then you said, as a good journalist, great, can you show me a proof, a source? You didn't say great, but can you show me a source that actually happened? Yeah, I tried to bear with the phone and it didn't happen. Why is it, in your opinion, that people say the first answer with gust, Israel's occupying Palestine, apartheid, etc., and then if they're asked to explain it, second level, they just can't do it?
Because it's hate. And hate is baseless. It's not based on facts. So they have no facts. So there was this guy I interviewed who says he was from Lebanon. And he was saying things like, yes, Israel burns babies and you killed my children. And I know this Israel kills 1 child every hour. Like crazy facts, crazy nonsense, right? That he was that he was trying to pass off as facts. And I said, give me one source. Give me one source. And he says, I know. I was there. So what does that mean? I'm here too. I live here, but also that doesn't count. That's not, an academic answer. Give me one proof. I know. Why does he think he knows? Because that's how they're raised. That's brainwashing. To be honest, in the hostile Arab world that hates Israel, they are raised like that. And he thinks he actually does know. It's true because they are raised like that. Their textbooks say that Israelis murder, Palestinian babies and whatever. So in some ways, he thinks what he thinks he knows is almost in his own warped mind correct because he's been brainwashed from a child. From being 1 year old, he's been brainwashed like this. So he thinks he does know what's right, but it's all nonsense, it's all lies. And when you push them, they can't give you one source, they can't give you one fact, and their whole argument falls apart because it's just baseless Jew hatred.
So this is an example of the Hasbara war that's currently being fought, and thank God that Israel hasn't lost a real war. We wouldn't be here. I don't agree with Bill Maher all the time, but he had a great line that if Israel was 8-1 in war instead of 8-0, it's no Israel. So thank God we're doing well militarily. Hasbara, I think we're not doing so well. Frank Luntz, I'm sure you've heard of him, great guy, met him in Ohio 2002. He brought up this concept that some people are not interested in facts, and what he means by that, the regular people, like not people that are one side or the other, just the average American, North American, etc., they're not really interested in facts. They hear sound bites, that's what sways them. What are your thoughts about that?
100%. And to be honest, if you're not invested in this conflict, if you're not invested as being a Jew or an Arab or someone who hates Jews or someone who cares about freedom, really, what's it to you? Why would you care about this? If you hear a soundbite, it plays on your emotions, that's all that matters. If I said to you right now, there's a conflict going on in South Sudan, that's sad, but you're not invested, you don't really care. So if I told you that, Sudanese babies are burning, how would you feel? That's sad, it's playing on your emotions, that's terrible, I hope that stops happening. But have I provided any facts? Is that actually true, what I just said? Who cares? You're now sad and you're recognizing that, oh my God, I feel bad, these Sudanese should stop burning their babies. So really, it doesn't, if you're not invested like we are, then yeah, the sound bites count for everything. They don't want facts. No one wants to stand there and listen to you give them a history lecture 3,000 years back and tell them everything that's going on. They just want to hear, oh my God, God, Israel's massacring people? Now I care. This is playing on my emotions. Now I know what side of the fence I'm on. It's very unintelligent. It's not a way to understand a conflict or a history or anything, but that's what's happening.
So at this conference, again, I'm dating myself, but 2002, California, it's a great conference, a lot of fun, Santa Barbara, beautiful place. So Mitchell Bard, of course, wrote the book, Myths and Facts, about the Arab-Israeli conflicts. He was on my program about 10 years ago, and he was saying we got to focus on these facts and educating the non-Jewish world about what's going on. And Frank Luntz was of the opinion, I'm sorry, that just isn't a good strategy. We're going to have to go more with sound bites. Things like, we know things are bad, but Israel's trying to make peace. What do the Palestinians want? If you were in charge of Hasbara throughout the whole world, do you focus more on sound bites or straight facts? Or would you, as I said, Jewish answer, try to do both? What would you do?
Jewish answer, try to do both. But of course, your sound bites should be your facts, because the world isn't going to get rid of sound bites. People like hearing one sentence, that's it. They don't want to listen to a whole lecture. They have very short attention spans. They don't care, as I said, unless they're super invested in it. They haven't done the research. So you got to get them with something catchy, a sound bite, something that really, it does play on their emotions as well, but it should be based in fact, so that if asked about it, if followed up on it, if pushed on it, you can provide the facts, because the other side sure can't. The people who hate Israel, the people who delegitimize Israel, the people who are anti-Semitic, they can't follow up with facts, but we can. So we should be using that to our advantage. That's where we're lacking in the PR war. We need to be using the sound bites, but based in fact. Hard-hitting, clever, clear, understandable facts.
All right, again, this is the Ari Lewis Show. Our guest this evening is Lauren Isaacs. Lauren, the videos that you did, you got a lot of weird answers. Was there an answer that even surprised you in its stupidity?
We had so many, countless, too many to count. One time someone confused, I said, you want to talk about the Arab-Israeli conflict? He said, is that to do with Palestine or Pakistan? He didn't even know that, which was very interesting. One time someone was talking to me about apartheid, and I said, well, you want to talk about apartheid? Isn't it interesting that Jews aren't allowed to pray on the Temple Mount? And he said he didn't know that. He doesn't know if that's true. And I said, believe me, it's true. I can go illustrate. I can get a family member, on FaceTime right now to go up on the Temple Mount, and they will get arrested because they're Jewish just for being up there, just for praying up there. And he was like, oh, I'm not sure if that's true. I can't comment. The ignorance is actually shocking at times.
But the 2 million Jews in the Holocaust, that also rank up there. That was pretty bad.
Yeah, someone said that 2 million Jews died in the Holocaust. Obviously untrue. And one time I asked someone what they thought of...
And it wasn't Rabbi Mizrahi, by the way. It's a different person.
One time I asked someone what they thought of Hitler. Blank slate, what do you think of Hitler? He said, I don't know who that is. I said, Hitler, 1930s, Germany, does that sound familiar? He wasn't joking. He did not know who Hitler was. So that was actually probably the most shocking moment that I've seen.
Oh my God, wow.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what to say. That's very pathetic. This was in Toronto?
It was in Toronto, yeah.
So the Canadian stereotype, if you will, is very chilled out, very relaxed, nice people. But there's been a lot of anti-Semitism in Canada, especially in college campuses. Concordia had a very famous incident. They didn't allow Netanyahu to speak there.
Yep.
So, again, you're from there. Why is that? I know you're not speaking for every Canadian out there, but it's so interesting to see a bunch of people, peaceful, relaxed people. They like hockey, nice, good, down-to-earth people. And then Israel, well, it is a violent sport, but they're like down-to-earth. Wayne Gretzky's a nice young man, when he played. And then Israel comes and they snap, and they change it. Talk about young college kids doing that. What is your theory behind it?
Because anti-Semitism is the same on every university campus, in every country, in every city around the world. It doesn't matter if you're talking about polite Canadians, or you're talking about aggressive Israelis, or you're talking about, countries that speak English, don't speak English, doesn't matter. Jew hatred is the same everywhere. And unfortunately, Canada has not been good in handling the anti-Semitism on the university campuses. It is out of control, and it's gaining momentum and gaining momentum. It has been for years, and now it's actually scaring people. The fact that Jews are being kicked off student union boards just for being Jews. The fact that students aren't being written recommendation letters because they're affiliated with an Israeli organization. The fact that they won't allow kosher food into a university campus cafeteria. All these things are actually frightening people now, because it's actually kind of blatant. They're not even hiding their Jew hatred anymore, but this is nothing new. It's been happening in Canada and all over the world forever.
Well, what's the explanation for not allowing kosher food on the college campus?
What explanation? Since when do you need an explanation to discriminate against Jews?
Well, But I'm saying they have to come up at least with a fake answer. Like they don't like the way animals are treated. Did they say something like that?
No, I'm sure it's just that they're not going to accommodate it.
Okay.
They don't have the money, they don't have the resources, they're not going to change their kitchen. I'm sure it's something very protective of the university.
Right.
They're not going to stand up and say, we hate Jews,
right.
But
Underline
read between the lines, you know?
Read between the lines. So we were talking a bit about the poor education, obviously, if there's people out there who don't know who Hitler is. And I was a substitute teacher for a little bit in the United States. It was interesting talking to first graders. They asked me, I don't know why, to teach the Holocaust to first graders. I don't know why that happened. But these kids asked a great question. How did it happen? How did Hitler get all these people to do something so evil against their own conscience, against their own human nature? But we're seeing some of that today, unfortunately. So it's just a simple equation of people do not learn from history. History repeats itself. Is it just as simple as that?
Of course, history repeats itself. Of course, people do not learn from history. Of course, people don't even want to know about history anymore. But to be clear, the Holocaust did not happen in one day, overnight. Hitler wrote his manifesto, his autobiography of how he hates the Jews and plans to rid them from the whole world when he was in prison in the 1920s. And the Nuremberg laws only came into effect about 12 years later. So that's 12 years that this book and his ideas and his hatred fermented and grew and boiled and got into the hearts and minds of people, and then it happened gradually. The same thing is happening all over the world now. It has been. We have to control it. Thank God we have Israel now. That's one thing that I do believe. Without Israel, another Holocaust would have happened already. But that is one thing that's so important in Israel. But these things don't happen overnight. They take time. They build up momentum. They become, how shall I say, they become sexy, right? It becomes that it's no longer not politically correct. It's no longer taboo. We can talk about it a little and now a little more, and now it's integrated into the university systems, and all of a sudden you've got things happening that you don't know where this came from. How are they saying no Jews allowed in certain places? There's a restaurant in Toronto that said no Zionists allowed, which means no Jews allowed. We are the children of Zion. That's our name in the Torah. So no Jews allowed. How did this happen in the year 2020? It happens not overnight, it happens over time.
No Zionists allowed in Toronto. We're talking about a Western country in North America. No Zionists allowed. That's pretty scary. By the way, this will sound kind of weird, but I have YouTubed a couple of Hitler speeches. Don't ask me why I did, it just kind of happened. And he does mention one of those speeches that they started off at one point with 7 people in a room. He said that. We started 7 people in a room, look where we are today. So like you mentioned, it didn't go overnight. Are we allowed to say the restaurant that doesn't allow the Zionists, or is that to be a problem?
Oh, I'm sure we can say it. I don't want to give them any business, actually.
All right, fine.
But
so you can look it up online if you're making that up. But that is.
You can look it up. Toronto restaurant. It's all over. It was a big news story.
Clearly, that's a disgusting situation. Again, we're speaking with Lauren Isaacs here on the Ari Lewis Show on Israel Sports News Radio. So you really went out of your way to do these videos. You took some risks. Obviously, it could be dangerous. You're putting yourself out there. What motivated you to do that?
It's the right thing to do. We have to educate, we have to expose, we have to empower. And I know this sounds cliche, but it's true. That's what we need to do. We need to remind people of history. Now more than ever, it's imperative that we educate them about the truth, about history, what's going on in the world. Again, the anti-Semitism going on university campuses is not happening in a vacuum. It's happening because we're allowing it to happen. Because the governments and the university administrators and the teachers and parents of these hateful students at home, no one's doing anything about it. It's on us. No one's going to protect us. No one's going to take care of us. We have to do it ourselves.
Okay, yes, but you could do that through a Facebook status. What made you want to go take a mic and go up to people and ask them these questions?
Because I like the shenanigans.
Okay.
No, but it's also more involved. When you get people one-on-one, there is a chance that you can show them something, a fact, a piece of history, open their mind to something that they haven't heard before, not so much with a Facebook status. Yes, that's an effective medium, but there's other effective ways to actually get to people. And I've had people write to me and say, you know what, one thing you said in your speech last night, I actually thought about it and I researched it and you're right and it's very interesting and I'm going to look into it more. And that's beautiful. That's the whole reason we're doing this. If you can get to even one person and make a difference, change their mind, open their mind to truth, facts, history, that's all worth it.
I got to share a personal experience. This is when I was 21. I went with some friends to this anti-Israel situation on my college campus, Arizona State University. And what I did was I was pretty smooth, but I picked holes in the guy's argument because this guy said, I got shot by an Israeli soldier just because, look at my face, and he had a bullet wound. So I said, how did you leave Israel? How'd you get on a plane? How'd you get to the airport? How'd you get on the bus to get to the plane, to get to the airport? Sorry, the other way around. Whatever I said. Anyway, it checkmated him. you could see that there was a flaw. And one of the other guys in charge of the event, he's like, I like your style, because he saw I wasn't screaming at the guy. I just use logical arguments to make my point, and I'm sure you've done that as well.
Of course. Oh, we don't scream at anyone. I don't think I've ever raised my voice at anyone. You don't need to. Again, we have facts. We have the truth on our side. We have logic, we have rationale, we have history, we have statistics. We have everything on our side. Let them lie and talk themselves into a corner. It's very easy, as you say, to expose their hatred and their lies when you have all the facts.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'd recommend. If you're going to get in these type of debates or arguments, whatever you want to call them, don't be the one that screams. Usually the guy who screams, as we see in Israel, when the guy screams, usually he's wrong. That's why he screams, try to hide that he's wrong. So try to have a nice, calm voice. So one of the things I wanted to ask, if people know of your persona out there, social media, and National Director of Hero Canada, but tell us a bit personally how you got involved with Zionism, experience you had at a young age, certain things that molded and shaped you, because as I said, it's not like people say overnight, I'm going to Israel tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly.
Generally.
But you know what? I came to Israel for the first time when I was 20 years old. So it was only 4 years ago. And feet on the ground changed everything. I will say that. I knew of Israel. I'm a Jew. You know, we're connected to Israel. There's Zionism. But we were unaffiliated. It's not that important when you're living in diaspora. It's not necessarily something you're super involved in. But coming here and putting my feet on the ground on that first Israel trip changed everything. I fell in love with the country. I fell in love with Zionism. I saw the beating heart of the Jewish people here, and I knew this had to be my life, my passion, my career, my future. It's really so important. That's why I encourage everyone to come, whether alone or on trips, organized trips, everything. You've got to come here and put your feet on the ground. It's unbelievable.
So up until that point, that trip, what level of Zionism would you say that you were involved in?
Listen, I was a regular kid in high school, at university in Canada. I was Jewish. I loved Israel. I said one day I'll go on birthright. I always said I'll do that, you know, get my free trip to Israel, go party in Tel Aviv. That was kind of my level of affiliation. The Arab-Israeli class that I took in high school was actually one of my favorites. Very interesting. I just liked the history. But honestly, it wasn't a big thing in my life. What's a big thing in your life when you're 17 or 18 years old? You know, school, getting into university, going out with your friends. It wasn't a big thing on my mind. But coming here, it really became everything. It became everything.
So that's what really changed things. Did you notice other friends that went to Israel and they had a similar experience as yourself?
100%. I know people, so many of my friends now who've made Aliyah said it was because of their first trip here, or they came on an organized program and it changed everything for them. 100%. That's why I can't emphasize enough that coming here, even just once, if you come here once in your life, it can make the biggest difference. It can change everything for you. It's so important. So yeah, a lot of my friends now made Aliyah because of the trips they took when they were in university.
And I went on one of the first birthright trips ever, as I mentioned, and I know Svi traveled to Israel as well, so it's a big part, obviously, coming to Israel. Again, this is the Ari Lewis Show here on Israel Sports News Radio, also on YouTube channel, The Nation of Israel, and our guest this evening is Lauren Isaac. So, Lauren, one of the things I want to bring up, we mentioned that there's obviously a lot of anti-Israel sentiment out there, but you did a video with an imam pro-Israel, and talk a bit about that experience, how that came to be.
The recent video we just did, the recent event, yeah, it was Imam Tawhidi, and he is a pro-Israel activist. He's kind of someone who's against radical Islam. That's his whole forte. And you know, I won't speak to what he does, whether you like him or you don't like him. Some people love him, some people take exception to him, but it doesn't matter. The point is, we love open dialogue. We will speak to anyone and everyone. The point of understanding, learning, educating yourself is about having open dialogue. That's why I invite all the BDS people, the anti-Semitic people, the people who write me death threats online. I invite them to come online or in person and speak to me and sit down and have a discussion, whether we do it on a Facebook Live or whatever. And mostly 99.9% of the time they will not, because again, if you're not comfortable with facts and rationalizing your own opinion, you can't sit down and have a discussion with someone. But we encourage open dialogue. That's why we speak to imams, and we speak to Christians who are pro and anti-Israel, and we speak to all sorts of Jews, pro and anti-Israel Jews, and you know, we speak to everyone. Just dialogue is the most important thing. I think that's evident nowadays when people are trying to shut down free speech so much. Dialogue is the most important thing.
Death threats?
Death threats.
Elaborate, please. You don't mind?
You don't get death threats every day?
Well,
is that a normal thing?
Once in a while, but not every day.
Somebody told me to choke today.
Okay. Svi got a death threat today. All right.
You got a death threat today.
You're not by yourself. All right. But yes, if you go detail, I mean, I don't think that's acceptable. Obviously, you would think death threats would come to a person that looks more like they're going to kill them. Like, well, I mean, so, yeah, elaborate. I'm very disturbed. I did not know that you got death threats, but please.
Right. So I get them all the time. You know, the usual ones. I'm coming to kill you. I'll shoot you. I've got my gun loaded. I'm gonna come stab you. The knife and the gun emojis on Facebook and all these things. You know, I hope you die. And then there's a lot of the Holocaust death threats. I'm coming to put you in a gas chamber. You know, which just doesn't make any sense. And I don't know. It's the usual stuff. When you're a public activist, obviously in this field, people don't like you. So yeah, a lot of death threats, but honestly, it doesn't bother me that much because these are keyboard cowards. They hide behind their keyboards wherever they are in their mother's basement somewhere, writing empty threats. If someone really wants to kill you, they're going to come do it. They're not going to write about it online.
Probably not announce it.
Generally, if it's something serious, you do report it to police. But listen, it's a daily event in this field, and I'm used to it now.
Fear the expression that an empty wagon makes the most noise. Heard that, right? It's a good one, eh?
Right.
So, okay, but were you, when you see that initially, I've gotten death threats before, by the way. When I first got it, I was a little bit alarmed, but now, yeah, I'm used to it. It doesn't really bother me. But initially, it did bother me. Did it bother you initially? You can be honest.
Initially, yeah, I would say the first time it happened was when I gained infamy being on the Temple Mount, opening up a Cherut Canada flag, which is kind of looks like an Israeli flag on the Temple Mount, and that's when the first time I ever got death threats. They started rolling in like crazy, and I was a little afraid. You know, it was shocking to me. I didn't know what was going on. I was 19 years old or whatever, or 20 years old, and I didn't know how to deal with it, and it was a lot. You know, when you get 300 messages a day, most of which are death threats, it's a little concerning for a young, new, budding activist. But again, we dealt with them. I spoke to experienced activists who are used to this, and I had a lot of support as well, which really helped me get through that. And now now I'm an old hand at that. Right. It's every day. It's okay.
You know, there's a Sheryl Crow song. The first cut is the deepest, so the first death threat is the deepest. You know, so it's when the first one comes, like, yeah, it bothered me, but now, like, whatever, sababa, it happens.
Yeah.
Okay, but as far as Facebook doing anything about it, or WhatsApp, any of these groups, these social media platforms, do they take enough action, in your opinion, to quell and squash these death threats?
I'm sorry.
That was a loud laugh.
No. If it's a death threat against Jews, no. If it's a death threat against anyone else, yes. I mean, I've reported comments and posts and private messages and pages that are just hateful. I mean, pages glorifying the Holocaust, people who send me direct messages, I'm coming to kill you, and you report these, and Facebook and Instagram write back, this does not violate our community standards. I don't know what community they live in, but that's horrifying that doesn't violate their standards. So no, they don't take any action at all. But if you, God forbid, post something that, you know, someone actually posted something horrible about, remember the Israeli soldier who was killed by a rock being thrown on his head just last year?
Yes.
He was on patrol and he was killed. May his neshama have an aliyah. And I wrote, someone posted something about it, and I wrote, may we avenge his death and get justice with all these terrorists. Something along those lines. And someone reported my comment, and Facebook immediately banned me. I wasn't allowed to do live videos for a month after that.
They put you in timeout, right?
Because they put me in the corner because of that comment. A comment that said, I want to avenge the death of a soldier, a 19-year-old kid who was killed by Palestinian terrorists. But of course, if someone writes directly to me, I'm coming to murder you because you're a Jew, Facebook doesn't care. So it is what it is, you know?
Okay, the Holocaust stuff, the gas chambers, etc. Have you ever gotten someone so stupid that they said something about the Holocaust, put you in a gas chamber, but then denied the Holocaust? Did you ever get that?
I've never had that in the same message. Okay. But yeah, I mean, there are a lot of Holocaust deniers out there. And honestly, every time they bring up Holocaust imagery or anything like that, it just shows that there's no difference between anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism, or all these terms that people try and separate in order to delegitimize Israel. There's no difference. People say, I hate Israel. I'm not against Jews. I hate Israel. But then they send me a picture of Hitler. So I don't. What does that have to do with, you know, Israel and Zionism? That has to do with the fact that you want me dead as a Jew.
I heard the psychological theory behind this concept, because if you think about it, it doesn't seem to make sense. The point you're making about if someone says I love Jews but I hate Israel, and then a Nazi thing. I heard a psychological thing that they were trying to say that we deserve the Holocaust and that we are Nazis, and that is proof we deserve the Holocaust. That's like kind of a Freudian thing. But have you ever thought about the concept of why someone is bringing up Nazism when they're talking about Israel? I've had people say, oh, Israel treats Palestinians the way the Nazis treat the Jews, but that's mathematically impossible. Israel would have to kill 6 million Arabs for that to happen. Considering the Palestinian population has exploded and quintupled since the 1960s, I don't see that being a thing. Yeah, that doesn't seem likely. So, do you have a particular theory of why they bring up Nazism when they're talking about Israel? Interestingly enough, I read something by a brilliant Israeli commentator, and now I'm forgetting his name. I'll find it for you, but he said that the idea is what they're trying to do is make a narrative, make it as if we don't deserve our own Holocaust. And I thought that was a brilliant way of putting it, because maybe that we do deserve the Holocaust. No, that we don't, that they want to use it. We have no right to use it as leverage to say, look, you killed it. They want to use it. We don't deserve the fact that he said it better, obviously this Israeli commentator said it brilliantly, but they're saying that you have no right to your own tragedies anymore. You have no right to talk about them, you have no right to use them, we don't want to hear about them, and we're going to steal them and use them for ourselves. You have no right to your own history anymore. And I thought that was brilliant. So basically it's all part of history revisionism. That's what it is. Okay, so that is a very interesting idea, because I saw an interview with Ahmadinejad when he was leader of Iran on the Larry King show. He's denying the Holocaust, and Larry King kind of breaks character. He says, listen, look, I know people that died in the Holocaust, relatives. Don't say it didn't happen. Then Ahmadinejad changed. That doesn't mean that Israel gets to occupy Palestine. So he did that switch. So maybe there is a correlation that they don't want us to have rights to our own tragedy, if you will. So I hear that argument. Yeah, exactly. That's what it is. It's all about rewriting history. It's all about painting a picture, an imaginary picture that they want the world to swallow. And that is that Israel has no right to be here. The Jews have no right to be here. And they're going to use whatever fictitious arguments they want in order to get that agenda passed. All right, again, this is the Ari Lewis Show here on Israel Sports and News Radio, also on YouTube, under the YouTube channel, The Nation of Israel. Our guest this evening is Lauren Isaac. So, Lauren, something I want to point out to you, I don't know if you're aware of this, but in the Rebooted podcast, this episode is the 10th episode, but we had one guest twice, so 9 guests. But you are our first female guest. I want to know if you think women have come, because I'm kind of pointing out the irony in this, if women come far enough in the Hasbara world and in other realms, because I'm like, maybe we made a mistake that we've gone this far without having a female guest, but it kind of worked out that way. If you think about it, I mean, the top rabbis are usually men, most of the top political activists are usually men. That's just kind of the way it worked out. So I want to get your perspective on that. Listen, if you know me, you know that I think modern feminism is stupid, and I think it's very damaging to women. I'm an Orthodox Jew, and I believe in Judaism. Women are revered, and we actually hold a higher place than men in a lot of regards, and I feel very honored to be part of Judaism for that reason. But no, I don't care that you've only had one female guest. You know what? I think it should be based on merit. Okay. It should be based on accomplishment. It should be based on what they have to say, not just filling a quota, which is... not filling a quota, but I'm not a token female. You're not a token female. But I thought to myself that it is weird that we had this many episodes and no women, so I was bothered by that. But okay, that's okay. I'll send you a couple names of cool female activists out there. Yeah. Get them on the show. We want to diversify. We want to have people from different backgrounds, different perspectives. But as far as, let's say, Israel politics, people will say that it's not far enough because they've only had one female prime minister. Of course, that's ahead of a lot of other countries, especially in this region. Does that matter to you at all? Like, would you say, Ayelet Shaked, a lot of people want her to be prime minister just because she's a woman. She's qualified, obviously, in addition to that. But does that weigh in your voting decisions at all? No, not at all. I don't care about people's gender, I don't care about people's sex, I don't care about people's race, I don't care about any of that, because it should be about merit. That's what it should be about. That's why, in Canada, they've done this stupid thing a couple years ago where the government of Canada said we need to fill half the parliament with men and half with women. And I just thought, what a ludicrous nonsense idea, because what if more than half, what if there were more qualified women, but now you're keeping them out because you want to fill the spaces with men? What if there were more qualified men and you're keeping them out because you got to put women in there? That's just silly. I think it should be based on merit 100%. So that law could have even been against women? Yeah, of course. Okay, of course. That's right. Sometimes people don't think about that you can make the solution worse than the problem. I mean, we've seen that happen obviously before. In the world now, of course. Yeah, in certain things, yes. All right, I got to get your thoughts about the Ben and Jerry's saga. I don't know why people are posting about it this much. It's ice cream, who cares? But It's a big thing. See a lot of Facebook all over the place. I want to first give my 2 cents before letting you speak. Ben & Jerry's is a factory in Israel. They have employees that are Israeli. They make ice cream that's fair trade. If you look up the history of chocolate, it's not so good. I'm going to buy Ben & Jerry's this Motzei Shabbat. I had it last Motzei Shabbat, had it on Shabbat. It's delicious. I'm not boycotting them, at least as of right now. If there's more things that change, maybe I consider it. I'm not boycotting it now, but if you want to boycott, that's cool, but I want to hear your thoughts on it.
Well, there is nuance in the Ben & Jerry's thing, I'll just say, with regard to the Israeli people who make Ben & Jerry's versus in the diaspora in America. So 2 different companies. Yes, in Israel, they are Israeli guys who you shouldn't boycott, and in the diaspora, you should boycott them because they are anti-Jew haters. But, you know, I think there's a bigger issue, and I was actually speaking to someone on a webinar the other day who said, we see this Ben & Jerry's thing all over the internet, and Jews are obsessed with boycott ice cream or don't boycott ice cream. And honestly, you should be embarrassed. That's what he said to us. He said, as Jews, you should be embarrassed that this is your biggest issue. And I said, you know what? You're right. Yeah. That it is embarrassing that we're even talking about this. Other people, you know, they want to get something done, and there's a global movement. The Palestinians want to murder us. There is a global intifada that goes on, and they unite, and they do something, and they get it done. And what are we here? Fetching about Ben & Jerry's when Jews aren't allowed up on the Temple Mount, where there are Arabs trying to steal our land by planting illegal trees out in Judea and Samaria, while we aren't allowed to build homes here because the International Criminal Court tells us that Jews can't build homes here. There are huge issues, and the fact that we can't get it together and we are obsessed with Ben & Jerry's or this and that going on in America, I just think we should be embarrassed, and we should be looking at the bigger issues. That's not to comment on you. I mean, obviously this is a topical issue that we should be talking about, and yes, don't boycott in Israel, do boycott outside of Israel. I think that's the general message, but I just wish that us Jews and us Zionists would get it together and focus on the larger issues. If we made as much of a campaign about the rights of Jews on the Temple Mount as we did about Ben & Jerry's, I mean, think of the news, think of the change we can make. But we don't get it together, where our heads are stuck in ice cream tubs.
By the way, people, I wanted to ignore this question. This was going on for over a month. I didn't want to address it on the program. I got a lot of messages, are you going to talk about it? I kept ignoring it. I'm like, fine, we're going to finally talk about it, but hopefully not too much more. I will say something interesting. I said this is a backstory to a few people. I know this is before your time, but there was a movie called City Slickers with Billy Crystal, and in the movie there's these 2 guys named, I think, Ira and Bernie, and they're on a trip in Colorado, and they're like, well, so what do you guys do? Like, really whiny, annoying voices, like, we make that ice cream, Ira and Betty. And then Billy Crystal says, oh, I love that ice cream, but the guys on the cover are, yeah, they're models. If you saw us, could you eat? So I think that was a play on Ben & Jerry's, and that's going to tie into the next question, is about Jews being our own worst enemy. These are 2 Jewish guys, not again, the ice cream boycott, whatever, just the general message that these 2 Jews are doing something anti-Israel. And we're our own worst enemy many times. So talk a bit about that.
Yeah, we are. I mean, not even only in the Ben & Jerry's situation, but if you just look at what's going on in America, in Canada, on college campuses, the fact is anti-Israel Jewish groups are springing up all over the place. And that's terrifying because there's an external enemy. You know, when the Palestinians come and say they want to kill us, that's one thing. It's very easy to deal with because it's honest. But then there's an internal enemy when these pseudo-Jewish groups, people who, you know, sometimes they are Jews, sometimes they just identify as Jews, they come up and they say, we are anti-Jewish, we are anti-Israel, we are anti-Zionist. That's very much a more insidious problem because now it's more difficult to deal with. Now they say, I have a grandfather who died in the Holocaust, therefore I am an anti-Zionist. Well, now what do you say? You know, that's way more difficult than Viva Viva Intifada. I honestly would rather take on a pack of Palestinians than have to deal with these self-hating Jews. And they are they're nefarious, they're insidious, they're disgusting. It honestly makes me want to puke when I see these Jews self-hating and talking about being anti-Zionist. Honestly, they don't have, more often than not, they don't have a concept of what Judaism is or what Zionism is. Let's put that right out there. They say, I'm a Jew. Well, what are you doing with your Judaism, you know? And that's not to say you're not a Jew if you're secular, but these people don't have the faintest idea about Judaism. They don't know anything. They don't know, you know, Shabbat from Wednesday. Let's put it that way. So they're presuming to speak for Jews when they are totally on the fringes. They are not the Jews that we should be listening to. It's a very difficult problem.
And a lot of them are very well respected in the intellectual community and other places, Noam Chomsky, Bernie Sanders, etc. Is it worse when they're up at that level? if they were just a regular person. But, you know, Noam Chomsky is very well respected.
Of course, listen, they didn't get there overnight. They weren't born 80-year-olds, even though they may seem like it, like they could. Oh, you can't imagine they've ever been teenagers. They weren't born 85, right? So that's the issue. That's why we need to be activists now. That's why we need to get into the universities and the high schools and educate the kids now, because today's youth generation is tomorrow's politicians, tomorrow's president, the next teachers who are going to be teaching your kids. So, you know, Bernie and all these people who are self-hating Jews, they didn't get there overnight,
right.
And they're old now, but once they were young. So that's why we need to educate the youth of today. That's the most important thing. And when you see young people standing up and saying, I hate Israel, I'm an anti-Zionist, that should be the most terrifying thing. It should strike fear into your heart and raise alarm bells that we need to get and fix this right now. We need to go there and fix that now. Or else they're going to end up another politician, you know, when they are 85, making terrible anti-Jewish laws.
Great point. It's true, because I think this is part of the problem. People look at a college kid and they say something stupid. Who cares? It's a college kid. But Bernie Sanders at one point was a college kid. So was Noam Chomsky.
As hard as it is to believe that
they were. A long time
were,
ago,
yeah.
But it did happen. This is Ari Lewis Show here on Israel Sports and News Radio. Also on the YouTube channel, The Nation of Israel. Our guest this evening is Lauren Isaacs. So we got to talk about, you mentioned earlier, let's talk about Har Bayit. I know you've been up there. It's a very controversial issue. For the record, I was up there once in 1998. I have mixed feelings about going up there, partly because there's such dispute up there. Should we go there or should we not? And the anger of the police and the anger of the Arabs as well. But also, it's not so simple to get up there. Tell us your thoughts, why you wanted to go up there, your experiences when you were up there.
So, plain and simply, Har Bayit, the Temple Mount, is the holiest place for Jews. It is where our temple stood. That's why it's called Temple Mount. It is the holiest place. People often mistake the Western Wall being the holiest place. It's not. Har Bayit is actually the holiest place, and we should be up there. And we should have rights. We should have freedoms. Everyone should have freedoms to pray wherever they want in Israel. But there is religious discrimination, unfortunately, in Israel, and it's against one people, and it's against the Jews.
Right.
And Jews are not allowed to go up and pray on Har Bayit, and Jews are not allowed to carry Sidurim or Jewish prayer books up there. Jews are not allowed to wave Israeli flags up there. Jews. We're not allowed to do these things. Can you imagine the international outcry if we said, Chas v'shalom, an Arab is not allowed to pray somewhere. They're not allowed to take out their prayer carpet, a Muslim, and pray somewhere. Can you imagine? I mean, the world would implode because of the controversy. But if a Jew is forbidden from praying somewhere, if a Jew is forbidden from walking somewhere, it's okay. It is what it is, right? No one cares. So going up on Har Bayit is not only a political stance, it's a religious stance, it's a moral stance, it's an ethical stance. I will not be told not to go somewhere by virtue of the fact that I'm a Jew. I will walk wherever I damn well please, especially in the Jewish holy sites. That's where we should be. And if more people made an effort to go up, and if more people brought this issue to light and actually talked about it on media like we're doing now, you know, in public spaces, it would garner more attention, and we would actually hopefully make some change. But people shy away from it, and it's sad, it's chaval, it's too bad that people don't talk about it. This is so important.
When you were up there, you mentioned that you showed the flag of the Heru Canada. So did you get any flack from the police? Did they ask you, what is that? What are you doing with that flag? Things of that nature.
They actually didn't even notice.
Okay. All right.
They didn't notice. I looked like a little tourist white girl going up there. I didn't look like anything. This was before I was religious, so I wasn't wearing a skirt. I honestly don't think I even looked like a Jew. And they weren't watching me, and I just did it, and nothing happened. I went home, I had lunch, and then I posted the photo on Facebook, and that's when the whole balagan started and the controversy started.
And the death threats.
And the death threats started,
Yeah.
but the police...
I like how you didn't want to mention that part. Whatever.
It didn't bother them.
Okay.
And why should it? Honestly, it's a flag of my organization.
Right.
And even if it were a plain flag of Israel, why should it bother everyone? We're standing in Israel. Why are Jews forbidden from flying a flag of Israel anywhere in Israel? I mean, that's just mind-boggling, right? It's mind-boggling.
And we should really break this down, because some people are not aware of the situation. For example, when I went up there in 1998, there's a sign that says, welcome to this holy Muslim site. There's no signs in Hebrew. Usually in most places in Jerusalem, there are signs in Ivrit, English, and also Arabic. But in Temple Mount, only English and Arabic. So there's some really crazy stories. People are about to say Kaddish, the police cover their mouth, pick them up, arrest them, throw them to jail.
Yeah.
Tell us about some of the stories that you've heard about or seen, and some of the stories that really are troubling out there.
A lot of my friends have been detained or arrested by the police up there for doing the most benign things, by saying Shema.
Right.
the Jewish prayer, by trying to open up an Israeli flag, by prostrating themselves on the ground, by bowing at the base of the Temple Mount.
Couldn't they just say they dropped a shekel or something? Like, I mean,
I know, I just got to tie my shoe, do a quick bow, and then go. But again, it's more than that. We should be able to bow in the open. I mean, can you imagine if this was going on in another country? Like, Christians are forbidden from bowing down in Canada. Can you imagine the international news story? It would swarm on social media. We would never see anything other than that. But in Israel, if there's discrimination against Jews, if the Muslims are keeping Jews out, it doesn't matter. It's not a story. No one cares.
well, let's clarify. It's the Israeli government that's keeping Jews out. It wasn't the Muslims that make those laws.
Well, the Jordanian Waqf does administer the Temple Mount. Of course, that is allowed by the Israeli government, so to speak. If we
Yes.
wanted it, we could take it back,
Sure.
which we should have done in 1967.
There are Israeli cops up there.
Yes,
enforcing these rules.
of course, there are Israeli cops, and there are Jordanian administrators. But yeah, they're working in tandem, I would say, on the Temple Mount. It's a very complex issue with regard to who's actually in charge. But yes, technically,
That sounds like Israel, right?
they're making it a big mishmash of complexity that doesn't need to be. If we wanted to administer it, we would administer it. It's in Israeli land. It's in our country. You know,
5 minutes that way.
What are the Jordanians even doing here? Can anyone answer that? Why are the Jordanians here? Excuse me, go back to Jordan. You stole that land, so take it. We want you here administering us and telling us Jews can't pray here. That is ridiculous. And yet, this is the status quo.
You were about to say 1967 we should have. Go ahead.
We should have taken control of the Temple Mount when we liberated and reunified Jerusalem. Because from 1948 until 1967, Jerusalem, half of it, was illegally occupied by the invading, colonizing foreign Jordanians who were trying to steal our land. And then in 1967, thank God, with our beautiful army, we liberated and reunified Jerusalem. And East and West Jerusalem was back together, and it was Jewish, and it was holy, and it was great. And everyone had freedom. Again, when Israel is in charge, everyone has freedom. When the Arab countries surrounding are in charge, the Muslims have freedom, sometimes Christians, depending, have freedom, oftentimes they don't, and Jews certainly don't have freedom. So when we're in charge, everyone has freedom. But we didn't take back full control of the Temple Mount, which we should have. It was a lot of political, nuance of why they did what they did, and we won't get into that now, or
But
the
you think
histories of it.
Rosh Hashanah made a mistake?
Big mistake, huge mistake, a grave mistake that we're paying for today, and it's an embarrassing mistake.
Yeah.
Because look, if we walk 5 minutes that way, as you said, we won't be allowed up onto our holiest site, and that should shame every Jew, that should shame every Israeli government official, that should shame the whole world.
It is pretty embarrassing. By the way, something I'd point out, we're here in the Old City right now. This is our first episode from the Old City, by the way, so again, thank you for being on. But there are mosques here in the Jewish section of the Old City that are still up. And I remember the first time I came to Israel in 1998 with my family, my mom pointed this out, look, we don't destroy other people's sites like this. If it was reversed, I don't know if the synagogue would last in a place that was completely controlled by Muslims.
Of course it wouldn't. There's the mosque, and you know what? Every time Jewish holy sites have come under the control, the colonizing power of foreign Arab powers, Jewish sites have been destroyed, and Jews have been barred from them. Every example in history I can give you, every year where Muslim empires, every other colonizer has taken over Jewish sites, we've not been allowed access to those sites, or the sites have been destroyed completely. We don't do that. As you say, we don't destroy anyone's holy sites, God forbid. All we're asking is access to our own Jewish ancient holy sites. Is that the craziest idea? It's pretty simple, right?
So you don't think Jerusalem should be just like an international city, like it should be a Jewish city because it's,
Of course, it
Jewish
should
city.
be a Jewish city. It's a Jewish city. That doesn't mean an ethnic, only Jewish city that we should bar other people. God forbid. But why shouldn't it be a Jewish city? It's our eternal ancient capital. It has always been. Jerusalem has never been the capital of any other country, any other entity other than Jewish Israelites from the beginning of time. Why shouldn't we recognize that it is a Jewish city? That's a fact. It's a fact. And we can't shy away from facts just because it's not politically correct to say so. It's not politically correct to say that this is a Jewish city, right? But it is. That's a fact. And I'm not going to apologize for it.
Again, this is the Ari Lewis Show here on Israel Sports News Radio. The YouTube channel is the Nation of Israel. Our guest this evening is Lauren Isaacs. So the sun is setting. I'm going to ask you one last question, at least for this episode. We love to have you come back, of course. You've talked about some of the extreme anti-Israel sentiments from the Muslim world, but as you mentioned, you also interviewed an imam. So it isn't that all Muslims are bad. It's 1.5 billion Muslims. It's not that they're all bad. There's an extreme element that, in my opinion, is not being handled by the normal modern Muslims. And I think that's the issue. What is your take? How can we get people that kind of know what's going on, know the right thing, and get the extremists to be quiet, leave us alone?
Yeah, listen, obviously, I've never said in my whole life, I've never impugned all Muslims. That would be terrible because it's simply not true. However, the radical Islamic faction is a very large and very dangerous faction that especially poses a threat to the Jewish people, to the Jewish state, to things like that. Now, again, it doesn't matter that they're only a minority, they're only a fringe, whether you believe they're a minority or not, doesn't matter. Even if they are, the Nazis were a minority.
Right.
5% of Germans were Nazis, and look at the destruction that they managed to do in just a couple of years. 6 million reasons why we need to take seriously these minorities. All right, so I'm not impugning all Muslims, God forbid, or anyone. That's baseless ignorance to say, oh, just because you're part of some organization, religion, nationality, you're bad. No, you're not. However, radical Islam is a major threat around the world, in the Middle East, and to Israel, and we should address it, and we should not shy away from talking about it, again, just because it may offend people.
I mean, because 5% of 1.5 billion is still 75 million. And the Jewish population worldwide is about 15 million. So gotta really keep an eye on the extreme Muslim situation, extreme in any situation, by the way. Again, our guest this evening has been Lauren Isaacs, and give some plugs. People want to check you out on Facebook, other places. Don't give her a death threat or send her a death threat. We don't like that. But if you want to say nice things, go you can find her. Where would be a good place?
Excellent, thank you. You can follow me, Lauren Isaacs, on Facebook, Zionist Lauren on Instagram, and also through Herut Canada and World Herut, Mugshemay Herut, all these places. That's where I work. Lauren Isaacs on Facebook. Follow me, send me messages. I love to reply to everyone. I love to have discussions. If you agree with me, if you don't agree with me, always up for a good conversation. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, but again, without the death threats, right?
It's okay. Listen, if you're very angry, send a death threat. It's okay, but don't expect me to dignify your death threats.
Well said. And also, I want to thank everyone for listening and watching, and I want to give a shout out to Babai Kotzbone because I gave a lecture last night. So, Neela, Ezra Sanders, everyone out there, thank you for that as well. This has been another episode of the Ari Lewis Show here on Israel Sports and News Radio, YouTube channel, The Nation of Israel. Thank you, everyone, for watching. God bless and good night.